What's up, guys? It is Dan from FightWave, and today I am joined by somebody who has become a regular on your FightWave scheduled programming. He is one of the most exciting fighters out of Australia right now. At only 25 years of age and at 7-1 as a professional, I think he is a lightweight standout to keep an eye out for in 2025. He faces Anshul Jubli on February 8th at UFC 312. He is a phenomenal fighter, like I said. He has got an incredible mustache. He's an incredible cook. And on top of that, he's a skateboarder. Some might call him the most interesting man on the planet. I like to call him Mr. Quillan Salkilld. Almost had the intro, had to butcher it at the end there. But Quillan, thank you so much for your time. How are you doing, my man?
Thanks, Dan. I'm very good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, brother. As always, it's a privilege to speak with you and congratulate you on all the recent success. Of course, you know that me, as a fan of the Australian regional scene, following your journey, it feels like it was a long overdue opportunity to fight for a UFC contract, and you finally made it happen. You are officially a UFC fighter, so I want to congratulate you on that first and foremost, and ask you, how are you feeling after everything? Now that the dust has settled a little bit, you've got the debut fight announced. How is everything in the life of Quillan Salkilld right now?
Man, ever since getting signed, other than just a little bit more, notoriety, everything's just been exactly the same. It's just, training every day, working towards the goal of, climbing the ranks of the UFC and, one day becoming the champion. So, as life right now, it's just, the same old things that got me to the dance.
Definitely, and just trying not to break the routine. And of course, going back to the Contender Series fight, obviously going into very unfamiliar territory. I think, if I'm not mistaken, your first fight outside of Australia altogether, fighting in the United States for the most important contract in any fighter's career, fighting for the UFC contract. Talk to me a little bit just about that entire fight week experience, and now that, of course, all the pressure from what it was such a monumental fight has kind of passed a little bit. Just the biggest kind of takeaways from that whole experience of fighting for that contract to be in the UFC.
Yeah, the only weird thing I found fighting on the Contender Series was the only thing that I not necessarily struggled with, but was weird, was having no crowd when you walk in, because it's built up. You're waiting at the doors, and then there's the big promo playing on the screen, and then they're counting down when you're walking out, and then you burst open the doors, and just kind of silence. You can just feel the pressure in the room. So that was a bit weird. I prefer walking out when there's a bit of a crowd cheering or booing or whatever. And other than that, it was I really like traveling to compete. It's it's very, very exciting. Only bad thing actually would be just getting used to the time zone difference, because I think it's 14 hours ahead, or behind. So it took quite a few days to get used to the sleep schedule. But other than that, it was wicked. I really enjoyed myself over there.
Definitely. And then, of course, on top of that, like you mentioned, going over 14 hours difference, it's definitely not kind for the faint of heart. And especially the flight there. I don't know how you guys did it twice. Not just once, but coming over for the shoot and whatnot, but twice. I really do credit you, Jasmine, Ramel, and Cody for making that trip over twice. And Mini T, Daniel Williams, I got to give him a shout out too.
Yeah.
Just all of you guys coming over here, I think at least once on that trip, it just speaks to, the any means possible attitude that you guys have carried. And then, of course, I know that you, as a fighter, of course, you're your own biggest critic. The fight, I thought, was a great Quillan Salkilld performance, but I know you kind of thought a little bit of the opposite. You thought that you had a lot more to show in that octagon, and I think in part that's just because of the incredible standard that we've come to expect, or not come to expect of you, but we've come to see from you, Quillan, thus far. And I know that for you, you're always looking to level up in that octagon and looking to improve in any facet imaginable. When you look at the performance that you put out there and just the quality that you showed, how happy are you with what you were able to display, and how excited are you to build on that in the UFC debut?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I am fairly happy with my performance. I think in the moment, as soon as the fight ended, it felt a lot worse than it actually, looked. It wasn't until I actually watched the fight back later on where I was like, oh, it's actually pretty good. It's a pretty good fight. So it was mainly in the moment, and then getting interviewed afterwards, I was a bit, not necessarily down, but just a bit disappointed with a lot of the things I did. And, I'm in there. I want to make it look easy. I don't want to, show any signs of, struggling. But my opponent was good, and he forced me to have to to push hard, and and yeah, I had to pull some tricks out the bag, and I did have definitely more things to show, but that's going to be saved for my run in the UFC.
Definitely. And then of course, when you talk about just the not expectation, but like just the contract on the line, you're thinking there, is it good enough to get the contract in that moment? There's a lot of stress in that moment of trying to figure out if the performance was good enough to get Dana White and the UFC matchmakers and officials to really, push you over the edge and get you into the UFC. And ultimately, I've got to say, of the best feel-good moments of 2024's Contender Series season, you and Cody Haddon getting signed, especially knowing the story, knowing that you guys are both teammates, same record at the time. Cody's obviously had one more fight since, but same record, roughly the same age, same gym, same city, same everything. Going in there from a grassroots level, training with Romel Luistro, training with him from nothing to eternal, lightweight champion, Cody to, champion as well. Both of you guys basically building yourselves up from the ground and finally becoming UFC fighters. In that moment that you shared with Romel, talk to me a little bit about the emotions, seeing all that, just that hard work culminate finally into what you've been dreaming of since you started this sport.
Yeah, the very, very special moment, not one that I'm ever going to forget. Obviously, yeah, Cody and I are both getting contracts and both getting to pretty much start our UFC run, at pretty much the same time, yeah, very, very special moment. And, it did put a bit more pressure on me, especially after, we all knew after Cody's one, he was going to get in. And after that, it's like, all right, it's on me now. I have to get in now. Otherwise it would ruin everything. So, yeah, after that, it was the big, obviously a very special moment, but also a huge weight off my shoulders after that moment as well.
Definitely. And just looking at, like you said, you and Cody starting your journey around a very similar time. And I got to give credit again to Romel and also your manager, Jasmine, for what they've been able to build and the culture that you guys have been able to set, not just at Louis Stroh Combat Academy, but what Jasmine has been able to set as a manager. I think, truly speaking, she is one of the golden standards when it comes to a manager in, combat sports. I think she's done a remarkable job and, just continues to prove why I think being an authentic manager and being somebody who truly has the best interest of having a small, selective, but really fine details in all of your kind of, athletes and just paying a fine eye to everything, it can pay off in massive dividends. And when you look at what Romel has done, I want to give you the floor real quick. When you look at what Romel Luistro has done and, finally it feels like he's getting some attention and people are recognizing that, hey, this guy might be one of the best coaches on the planet. How happy does that make you feel to be one of his pupils, one of his students, one of his, fighters that has come up and made that true?
Yeah, it's a very feel good moment. I've always known that Romel one day is going to be one of those, top end coaches that a lot of fighters are going to, come to the gym just to be trained under him. Like guys like Eugene Behrman, from City Kickboxing. Everyone, when they first started rising up with Izzy and Volk, everyone wanted to go to City Kickboxing and train under Eugene, right? And there's been obviously so many gyms in the States that are exactly like that. So I am very confident that, one day very soon that, Louis Stroh Combat Academy is going to be exactly the same,
Definitely.
Everyone's going to be wanting to come here to train under Romel after seeing, the things that he can do.
Absolutely. And then just looking at right now, we spoke a little bit ago about traveling, of course, to the States and that not being the most pleasant flight. But, when you look at a UFC debut and having a UFC debut in your home country, you can't ask for a better UFC debut. Just flying from side to side, from, coast to coast and fighting in Sydney for your debut. When you got the call to fight in Australia, how excited were you knowing that this is a lot easier of a UFC debut? I can actually have family come over. I can actually have people come see. What was kind of the emotions when you found that you're going to be debuting in Australia?
Oh, over the moon, man. The only thing I think about is walking out and then having everyone, cheer for me and having a full. So I know from the get go whether I'm if I'm the first fight early in the morning, that stadium's going to be, packed from the get go. That's how whenever there's an event here, everyone's there from the start. So it's going to be so wicked. I just envision myself walking out with the flag and, seeing all the cheers and all the support from everyone. It, gets the blood pumping every time.
Definitely. And then on top of this, we spoke about it off air briefly, but we know that on fight day in that stadium, it's going to be a lot of Australians, but it feels like when the fight got announced for you fighting Anshul Jubli, of course, for fans who don't know what Anshul Jubli's nationality is, he's Indian. The first, I think, the only Indian male in the UFC right now. When the fight got announced, Quillan, I feel bad for your DMs first and foremost because it was a war zone, I can imagine. Talk to me about just a little bit of the chaos when the fight got announced and also just your thoughts on Anshul Jubli as an opponent. What are kind of like some of the things you like about his game without giving, of course, too much of your game plan away. Just kind of the prospect of fighting a guy like him on your debut.
Yeah, my DMs and my comment section on my posts were just, full of, Indian supporters for Anshul. So, kind of expected, they have the numbers. So it was just flooded for like a good, solid like month. It was just my DMs and anything I would post, whether it's just like on my story, anything to do with anything, has nothing to do with the fight, I'd still get like replies with Indian guys, like either it was actually kind of mixed, either roasting me or actually giving me like support and like showing love. So it's a very it was a nice mix, pretty even mix actually. My thoughts on Anshul as an opponent, he's quite tidy on the feet in terms of his kickboxing game, but in terms of his ability like to mix it up, with me especially, I don't think he's gonna be looking to try to, take the fight to the mat. I think he's going to be trying to look, to keep it standing, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be having, more tools to my advantage, using, my abilities on the feet and using my grappling, expertise to, get him to the mat and be hunting for subs. I just don't think he's going to be able to handle, the onslaught of all the different, weapons being thrown at him.
Definitely. And I know for you, one of the biggest things that I love about you and Cody is that you don't shy away from saying anyone, anytime, anywhere. And I know for you guys, it's almost like your kids in a candy store right now being in the UFC, knowing the competition pool that's ahead of you guys. I know for you, wanting to prove yourself against the best, you definitely did that in Australia, didn't shy away from fighting the best guys in Australia. Now, you've got an entire competition pool of lightweights in the deepest division in the UFC, might I add, that you've got, the opportunity to face. How much does that excite you, knowing that now we're at base point of Everest, now the climb begins? How much does that excite you, knowing the talent pool in front of you?
Man, this is why I do this. I like the competition and these big moments. That's what make me feel alive. This is like my, I'm like, you could say I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like some people like to jump out of planes, skydive, bungee jump. I like to test my mettle in a cage in front of everyone. So, the tougher the competition, the more exciting it seems to get for me. And this is exactly why I do this sport, to feel alive.
Definitely. And then, of course, one of the biggest takeaways for me in the UFC from my time watching it is just how many Australians and New Zealanders have gone through the lightweight division. Of course, some great names, including the likes of Dan Hooker, Brad Riddell, Jamie Malarkey, and then you've got, of course, right now, yourself and Tom Nolan. When you look at just the division right now, you and Tom Nolan, that new generation of Australian lightweights coming into the UFC and surging, how much does that excite you, knowing that generation after generation, Australia is continuing to excel in what is one of the, just the toughest divisions in the world in combat sports?
Yeah, the sport is growing here. Everyone wants to do MMA now. Like the other sports seem to be, not as popular or just like dying out, or, and everyone that seems to train and do like mixed martial arts here want to do it as their career. Everyone wants to get into the UFC. Like I think most of the guys I fought coming up through the amateurs and even in the pros, their goal was to be in the UFC, just like myself. So just that itself just makes the competition, a lot more harder because everyone's, competing with a purpose here. There's not really many like hobbyists that just fight for fun. So everyone here has got like a goal to get to the next level. So I think when the talent pool like that is, congested, everyone's like competing with each other hard to get into the UFC, and only if you get through, that just makes the winners of that even more, more talented. So I think the talent coming through Oz now is going to be, we're going to be like the next big thing. There's been, obviously the States always been a thing, Brazil, Dagestan, and now, I've said it before, when you sign to fight an Aussie, you're knee deep in shit. So that's what's coming.
Definitely. And then, of course, for fans who don't know, you have got probably the most dynamic base. Like I said, the most interesting man. Cooking with Salkilld is happening. Cooking with Volk might have some competition. You've got the mustache. But also, one thing that I want to petition for the UFC to do is to have a skateboarding competition. I know you're an avid skater. You have roots in skateboarding. There are so many fighters on this roster that have skateboarding backgrounds. Jalen Turner, Peyton Talbot, Marcus McGee, Julian Arosa. The list goes on and on. Can we petition for the UFC to have a skate or MMA tournament in terms of skate, like playing that game?
Yeah, we need to play a game of skate. Everyone that that has a base, just a big flat ground area, and everyone grabs a board, and we need a an in-house UFC game of skate.
Absolutely.
I'll be down for that.
Absolutely. I think I have my pick on who would win that, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments section. And Quillan, thank you so much for your time, brother. It's always a privilege to speak with you. And of course, congratulations on all this recent success. From speaking to you ahead of your Eternal title fights to now speaking to you ahead of your, or speaking to you ahead of your Contender Series fight to speaking to you ahead of your UFC debut. It feels like time after time when I speak with you, you're continuously leveling up, and I can't wait to see what 2025 has in store for you. I guess my final question to you is, of course, you're gunning for that 50K bonus on your debut and you're gunning for a victory. What does 2025 hope to entail for Quillan Salkilld, and what is your messages to the supporters at home?
Yeah, 2025. It's going to be a lot of money and a lot of wins. All right, that's my goal. I want at least 3-4 fights this year, 3-4 wins, 3-4 bonuses. That'll be a good 2025. Yeah,
absolutely. And then just Quillan, again, thank you so much for your time. And to the fans at home watching, check out Quillan Salkilld at UFC 312 against Anshul Jubli. I think it's going to be on the early prelims, I would imagine, so if it's a debuting fighter. But make no mistake, this is a fight you do not want to miss. I think it's going to be one of the best, fights to kickstart the night, so do be sure to check it out. Check out Quillan on social media. It's been me, Dan, from FightWave. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Have a great day, guys.